Now, I was thinking about that song that we sang today because I see the songs before what we're going to be doing in the upcoming week. And I was just thinking about that song. It says, I trust in God. And I realized something. For many of us, we don't know what that word means. Because the word trust means to depend on. So when we're saying, I trust in God, I'm saying that God is my dependency. I am depending on God. How many of you can float in water? Let me see the hands. Those of you who can float. Come on, don't be shy. Hardly any of you can float. Then put up your hands. Let me see your hands. Okay. I said, how many of you can float on water? Okay. Now, okay. So, Barris, you can't float on water. You try? And what happens when you try? Hey? It works? But I thought you said you can't float. So why didn't you put up your hand? Markila, can you float on water? Why can't you float on water? Have you tried? You've never tried? Why haven't you tried? You don't know? Who else can't float on water? Let me see your hand. Okay. Adrian, you can't float on water? The last time you tried, it didn't work. You can't swim. Now, you know there are people who can float on water that can't swim, right? Okay, so what happens? Have you ever tried to float on water? And what happened when you tried? You sank. And why did you think you sank? You're too tense. Too tense. Okay, that's very good. Paul, you can't float on water. Can you swim? Okay, so see, Paul can swim, but he can't float. What happens when you try to float on water? You sink down. Like, what goes through your mind? What's going through your mind when you try to float on water? You always try to what? Okay, you try to go up, but then you fall back down. Who else can't float on water? Cannot float. You can't float on water? Okay, so have you tried? So what happens when you try to float on water? Your legs go down. Okay. So I can't float on water. Okay, I cannot float on water. And Adrian hit it right on the nail that why I can't float on water. I cannot float on water, okay? And the reason I can't float on water is because I don't trust the water. I don't trust the water. And the reason that I don't trust the water is because the water comes across my face. And then what happens? You get tense. And the moment you get tense, you start to sink. Well, you don't trust God. Because you get tense. You know what tense is? Anxiety. You get anxious. You get anxious because you can't feel God holding you up. You can't feel God. Now think about it. Water you can just walk through. But here's this thing, the water you can walk through, but it's holding up your body weight. And the reason why is because you just let go. You allow the water to do what? Support you. But the moment you stop allowing the water to support you, what happens? You what? Sink. And in the same way that in everything that we need and do, we need to depend on God. we need to just let go and let God. It is us taking God at his word. That if God said it, I just trust him to do it. But how many of you can trust God with your eating? How many of you can trust God with your weight? How many can you trust God with your discipline? Third John 1:2 says, beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health even as your what? Soul what? Prospers. And so we're talking about health. And why is health so important? Because if you're sick and diseased, your body is infirmed and weak, you can't fulfill God's purpose in your life. Is being blind a disease or sickness? Is it being blind a disease or sickness? Is it a disease or sickness? It depends. If you're blind because of diabetes, it's a sickness. But if you're blind because your eyes are damaged or your DNA was out of whack, then it's a disability. It's like being crippled, being made. And you don't just need to be healed. A crippled person doesn't need to be healed. They need a creative miracle. A blind person doesn't just need healing. They need a what? Creative what? Miracle. And so a person that is blind can still do things for God because they still have their health. They're not weak. There are many blind people that have done great things for God. There are many crippled people that have done great things for God. But when you're sick and diseased, you can't get out of bed. You can't even pray because you're in so much pain. You can't do a lot of great things for God. God desires for us to be in what? Health. That's his desire. God's given us a promise. And what's the promise? Galatians 5:1 says, stand fast, therefore, in the liberty or freedom by which Christ has made us free, and do not be entangled again with the yoke of bondage. So the title of my message today is, don't let your freedom steal your health. Don't let your freedom steal your health. He says, stand fast in the freedom by which Christ has made us free. We've been given a freedom. Psalms 104:14 says, he causes the grass to grow for the cattle and vegetation for the service of man, that he may bring forth food from the earth. So God has given the vegetation, the fruits and the vegetables, for the service to serve us. The vegetation is our medicine. He says, let your food be your what? Medicine. Genesis chapter 9, verse 3 says, now understand, when God created man, he only ate vegetation. Verse 9, Genesis 9:3 says, he's speaking to Noah, he says, every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. So anything that moves on the earth, he says, it's now food for you. I've given you all things, even as the green herb. How many have ever eaten grasshoppers? Anybody ever eaten a grasshopper? Accidentally. But do you know that there are people who eat grasshoppers? You know that people eat worms? Protein. Do you know that John the Baptist ate locust? Yeah, he ate locust. Why? Protein. And you know there are folks that eat cats and dogs? Not just China. It's all in the mind, isn't it? So in other words, God is saying, I have given you the freedom to eat vegetation. Now, is there every vegetation on earth you can eat? Some of them will kill you. It's poisonous. So he's given us all things. So he's given us food, vegetation, and animals to freely eat. You have the freedom to eat both plants and animals. But we are not to use this freedom to become slaves to the food that God has given to us. 1 Corinthians, because this is the problem. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12 says, all things are lawful for me. If you want to eat pork, eat pork. If you want to eat shrimp, you know. That's what Paul's talking about. All things are lawful for me. You can eat whatever vegetation that's not poisonous. You can eat whatever animal you want to eat. All things are lawful for me. But what it says, but I will not be brought under the power of any. I will not allow the fact that I am free to eat whatever I want to eat to bring me under its what? Power. Do you know that there is only 3 major food groups? Let me not say food groups. 3 major elements we need from food. Only 3 that is absolutely necessary for us to eat. There's just 3. Anybody know what those 3 are? Protein, fats, fiber. See, because your body can turn protein to carbohydrate. Fiber. What? No, it's not a type of carbohydrate. Fiber is roughage. Your body doesn't really digest fiber. Okay? Your body doesn't digest fiber. The reason why fiber is different from carbohydrate is this, because carbohydrates have an insulin response. Right? So your body doesn't digest fiber. Your body digests. The moment you eat anything with carbohydrate in it, in your mouth, your saliva starts the process of breaking down the carbohydrates. And one of the main forms of getting your fiber is, guess what? Beans and vegetables, legumes. And that's why sometimes those things can be gassy and very gassy. Okay? Now, the reason I bring that out is this. Your body needs protein, needs fiber, needs fats. What happens when your body gets carbohydrates and it gets too much carbohydrates, what it does is changes that carbohydrate into fat. And that fat it stores in the belly, in the hips, in the thighs, in the arms, in the neck. It stores those things there. Why? Because it says, I've got too much fuel and I don't know what to do with this, so we'll store it for another day. And guess what substance most of the processed foods we eat? It is made up mostly of what? Sugar, which is what? Carbohydrate. And the thing about this is this: protein is not addictive. Fiber is not addictive. Fats, good fats, are not addictive. But you know what's addictive? Sugar. Carbohydrates are very addictive. And guess what is the first thing that starts to, that when it goes into your mouth, that spikes, that gets a response? It's sweet. It sends something to your brain, and you want what? More of it. I remember maybe 2 years ago, as I was in bed, just lying there, the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me and said, sugar alters your DNA. I've never heard that. Sugar alters your DNA. And so I went and looked up on Google. And guess what? Studies show sugar alters your DNA. Refined sugar alter your DNA. And understand that as it alters your DNA, it causes changes in your body. So understand. So when I say that fiber is not carbohydrate, even though it has a similar molecular structure to carbohydrate, your body can't digest it as a carbohydrate. Your body cannot digest it. So when a lot of times when you look on a label and it says carbohydrate, it's not talking about fiber. It's not talking about that carbohydrate. So I want to make that distinction to you. That when you see carbohydrate, now you notice that on the label it separates fiber from carbohydrate. You notice that? And the reason is because the carbohydrate that's fiber, your body don't digest it like how it digests what the carbohydrate is, which is a sugar. And so I don't want you to get confused when you see carbohydrate. And so if I say, well, fiber is a carbohydrate, oh, it's got fiber. No, it does not. It's got sugar, okay? And even on the label, they make the distinction. But fiber is a carbohydrate structure. But the body does not digest it the same way. You with me? And so your body needs lots of fiber. And so there's a diet out there that, because for people to lose weight, called the carnivore diet. How many have heard of the carnivore diet? Okay, where all they eat is meat. I didn't even know about this until I met someone that all they do is eat is meat. and they lost a lot of weight eating meat because all they're getting is what? Protein and B12 and iron. The problem with that diet is this. There's a reason why God made man a vegetarian in the first place, right? You're getting no fiber. There's no fiber in meat. And some of the fats in meats is not good fat, except if that meat is fish. Fish has good fat. And so it's very important that when you hear about these diets to lose weight, that you do your research. Don't just, listen, you don't want to go on a diet you can't stay on. You don't want to do that. Because what will happen is people go on diets, they lose weight, and guess what? They gain it right back. Why? Because it's not sustainable. And so you want to live a lifestyle where you are able to eat the way you should eat and not create problems. Can anybody tell me what is the most dangerous part of the body to have fat? Stomach. Called visceral fat. Why? Because fat starts going around all the organs. You start to get fatty liver. And the liver stops being able to function the way it's supposed to. And that around this is what the scripture goes on to say. 1 Corinthians 6:13, it says, foods for the stomach and the stomach for foods, but God will destroy both it and them. Now the body's not for sexual immorality, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. What is it saying? I'm not going to get into the second part, but what it's really saying is this, that your body is not to live to be pleased. It belongs to the Lord. A lot of us, it's my body. I'll eat what I want. I'll do what I want. No, your body, if you're a follower of Christ, your body is not yours. You don't get to do with your body what you want to do with your body. You've got to take care of that body. Why? Because it belongs what? To the Lord. You know, when you go, like you go on these resorts and you see the buffet. See the buffet. And you see all the food for days. And what did they say? Your eyes is bigger than your what? Your stomach. And you just pile it on. And this is a subconscious thing sometimes. Because you put it on your plate, you feel you got to eat it. Now, there's a lot of food gets thrown away at those buffets. But understand that we are not to allow our stomach to be our God. Philippians 3:19, it says, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, and whose glory is in their shame, who set their mind on earthly things. We are not to live for our appetite. It is destructive. It leads to reducing the quality of our lives. And that's what I want you to understand. That when your belly is your God, when your stomach determines how and when and what you eat, or your tongue determines what and how you eat, it becomes destructive and it will reduce your quality of life. You can't do certain things anymore. You can't go certain places anymore. You can't run. Walking becomes a struggle. A lot of things become a struggle. Why? Because you're allowing your belly, your stomach, your appetites to lead you, which ultimately brings sickness, disease, and death. untimely death. There are a lot of people who die way before they needed to. Remember what I said. DNA loads the gun, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger. Right? All of us have disease in our DNA. When I was in Jamaica, I didn't realize, and so I did the family tree. So on my grandfather's side, on my father's father's side, yes. So that's where the Hibbert comes from. Now, my grandfather, or my father's father, his mother died in childbirth. His father was Isaac Whitehouse Hibbert. His wife was Edna Deer. So I am related to people who are deers. D-E-E-E-R. I've never met a deer from Jamaica. Right? But I'm related. So you see what I'm saying? There's stuff in the deer line that I don't know about that's in me. Why? Because my great-grandmother was a deer. Just like my great-grandfather was a Hibbert. And there are things in the Hibbert line. There's things in the Charrington line, in the Smith line. There's things in the Picard line. There are things in the Wilson line. That's in my DNA, and they're not all good. But you know what? I can control to a degree whether what's in the Deer line, the Hibbert line, the Charrington, the Smith, the Wilson, the Picard line. Why? How? By my what? Eating habits. But if I don't watch, if I allow my stomach, my belly to be my God, my appetites to be my God, to dictate what I do, I'm literally putting the bullets in that have DNA is put in that gun, and I'm picking up that gun and shooting myself with it. I want you to know your body type you didn't determine. It was determined before you were born. So what do we do about it? Galatians 5:13 says, "For you, brethren, have been called to liberty." We've been called to what? Freedom. Only do not use your freedom, your liberty, as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. Don't use your freedom to bring yourself into bondage. Don't use your freedom to turn you into a slave. And how do you? It says, by love serve one another. Romans chapter 13, 8-10 says, owe no one anything except to love one another. For he who loves another has fulfilled the law. For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not be a false witness, you shall not covet. If there's any other commandment, are all summed up in this saying, namely, you shall love your neighbor as what? You shall love your neighbor as your what? You shall love your neighbor as your what? You shall love your neighbor as your what? Why? Because you're supposed to love your what? You're supposed to love your what? You're supposed to love your what? He says, love does no harm to a neighbor. And why does love do no harm to a neighbor? Because then you love the neighbor as yourself. That means you're not supposed to do anything that harms you. You are not supposed to do anything that will harm you. But we do a lot of things that harm ourselves. You know, interesting human beings. Pick up a cigarette carton and shows all the lungs and stuff being eaten out. And you know what they do? Flip open the cigarette and put it. Folks hear that tens of thousands of people are dying from fentanyl. And guess what people do? They'll take it. You know, I don't get drug dealers. I don't get it. Why would you kill off your clients? Like, it's demonic. Like, why would you do that? That doesn't make no sense to me. Like, if you're going to do it, like, why would you? It's like, no, but that's a client that's dead. That's one client, that's a client that's dead. Like, why would you kill off your client? It's demonic. It's devilish. But folks hear that fentanyl will kill just a little. You don't need much of it. Just a tiny bit of fentanyl will wipe you off the face of the earth. But people still do it because it's very addictive. And do you know what some drug dealers do? Lace the marijuana and the crack with opium because it's so addictive. Yeah, and the government is selling weed. And the government unleashed crack cocaine into the neighborhoods. So how do you love your body? How do you love on your body? 1 Corinthians 9:27, Paul says, but I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I've preached to others, I myself should become disqualified. What does that mean, disqualified? That I'm not able to fulfill God's purpose for my life. And folks, think about this. That if I don't, that goes across so many things. This was it 25 years of the pastors resigning? So many pastors resigned in 2025? Was it 2025? 2024, 25. You know why they're resigning? Because they did not bring their body into subjection. They did not discipline themselves. And Satan will rat you out, but he don't rat you out right away. He wait till you get to the top, then he rats you out. Why? Because he wants you to fall hard and he wants people's lives to be destroyed. What's the pastor's name? Robert Morris? Something he did years ago that he never dealt with. Built the largest church in America. The largest congregation in America, over 100,000 members. And he had to resign. Why? Because at 20 years old, while he was preaching, he couldn't control himself. He's lost everything. 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 But in the same way, folks, you need to be disciplined about what you eat. Because everything you eat becomes a part of your body. You heard the saying, you are what you eat. You are what you eat. Now, that isn't 100% true because there's a lot of people in this world that's not sweet. Right? A lot of people like sweet, but they're not sweet. I mean, so it would be great if you're 100% so, but there's a lot of folks that eat sweet and they just not sweet. But the saying really is that whatever you eat becomes a part of you. And understand, it is the will of God for you to live long in the earth. Now, I want you to pay attention to this as we close. Exodus 23:25-26 says, so you shall serve the Lord your God, and he will bless your bread and your water. Now, I want you to understand that the bread that they ate is not the bread we eat. The bread they ate was digestible. The bread we eat is not that digestible. That's why people have gluten intolerance. About 70 years ago, they changed the bread. So it would be mass produced to deal with hunger. People were not gluten intolerant before, but they changed. So now it's hard to get bread that wheat without gluten in it, because that's grown. It has to become gluten-free. Or if you make sourdough, so when you make sourdough, that fermenting process removes some of the gluten. So if you're gluten intolerant, you probably can tolerate sourdough bread. But there's also another trick. Freeze the bread. Studies have shown that if you freeze bread, it changes the protein structure in the bread, so it becomes more digestible. But folks, if you're dealing with belly fat, you need to stay away from the bread, even for a season. You want to lose weight without spending an hour in the gym? Listen to me. You can spend an hour in the gym, and if you're still eating a lot of carbs, the belly fat's not going anywhere. Nah. You've got to deal with the carbs. If you're dealing with belly fat, if you're dealing with fat that you don't want in your body, carbs is your enemy. And you need to get off of carbs for a season, especially like rice and all the wheat stuff and rice stuff. And if you're gonna eat rice, just take just a spoonful. Just a spoonful. Studies have shown that if you reduce your carbohydrate and just go for a walk in the morning, before you eat any food, any food, just go for a walk. Whether that be on a treadmill or just go for a walk for 30 minutes. Because you know what your body does? Your body will go into your fat stores for fuel. But do you see, when the moment you eat something, your body will not go into its fat stores. It will use the carbohydrates you just ate instead of using your fat stores. And that's why people say, I'm doing everything I know to do, but I'm not losing. There's a reason why. Notice what God says. I will bless your bread, your food, and your water, and I will take sickness away from the midst of you. But how does he take sickness away from the midst of you? He's got to bless your what? Food. In other words, the food that you eat and what you drink is tied to sickness being taken away from the midst of you. No one shall suffer miscarriage or be barren in your land. I will fulfill the number of your days. Well, what is the number of your days? Well, Psalms 51 verse 16 tells us the number of our days. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. The number of your days is what? Long life. Okay? And what is long life to you? Long life. Dying at 20 years old, 15 years old, 60 years old, 70 years old. It's not long life. I believe the average, the life expectancy in Canada now is like what? It's about 82 or something. Is it 82 for females and about what? 79 for males? Yeah, for males, because women tend to live longer. Because women handle stress better than men. It's not what you think, it's what actually happens. You know why that is? Because women talk. Women tend to talk. Men tend to hold it all in and let it fester inside. And that's why more men blow their brains out than women. More men successfully commit suicide than women. Why? Because women talk. I always tell my wife, sometimes she says, Gary, why don't you say something more? I said, because women have 25,000 words, men got 5,000. I already used up my 5,000. But women speak more than men in general. That's why you find a man that talks too much, you wonder. Right? Okay? So now, the only exception usually that is when a man first meets a woman. And they be up on the phone 1 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, got to get up and work at 6 o'clock, you know. But I'm telling you, it will not last. It will not last, okay? But it happens that you just meet the young lady and you just on the phone, just talking all the time, go to work tired. It will not last. It will not last. It will not last. God wants us to live long and strong. The life expectancy is 79 to 82. But those last 15 years is not good quality life. We're shocked when somebody is in their 80s and they look young. No, listen to me, folks. You're not supposed to be, and please, I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm just trying to get you to understand something. You're not supposed to be all wrinkled and bent over and barely can walk and get aches and pains all over your body. When you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 100, you're supposed to be strong. I'm not trying to make fun of people, but understand it's not genetics. It's lifestyle. You got to get up and walk. You got to go out and walk. You got to walk. You got to make decisions. Stop putting things in your body that harms your body. Stop letting your stomach be your God. Stop allowing your stomach to be your God. For some of us, our eyes. Because our eyes are bigger than our stomach. Don't allow your appetite. I say no. Oh, Pastor, you different. Yeah, because I want to live long and strong. That's why I'm different. I want to live long and strong. I don't want to give the enemy a reason to take me out of the earth. Why? Not because it was my time, but because I was not disciplined to bring my body into subjection. Sickness and disease doesn't have to take you out of the earth, even if it's in your DNA. Stop pulling the trigger every time you see a sweet table. If I had my way, there'd be no sweets in this ministry. But I get pushback. Because folks didn't like their sugar. They love their carbohydrates. They be a mutiny in here. If I had my way. But folks, on a serious note, let us stop harming ourselves. And listen to the Spirit of God. There's sometimes the Spirit of God will tell you to stop eating something for a season. He'll tell you, don't eat that right now. Doesn't mean it's forever. There's some things you need to stay away from forever. But there's sometimes the Spirit will just drop in your heart, stay away from that. But it's not forever. This church and this ministry and all churches should be the healthiest places on the planet. Why? Because we've got the book. And God tells you how to eat. Make vegetables and fruits the main part of your meal. Because that's how He created us. And you better stay away from that carnivore diet. Let us stop harming ourselves and let's love on ourselves. And for those of you who don't exercise heavily, understand, you can lose lots of weight without a lot of exercise. Just change your eat. Focus on proteins, fiber, and good fats from nuts and seeds and from fish. Avocado. I got an issue with avocado. You know what my issue is with avocado? Spoils too quick. I keep having to throwing them out. So I just, what's that? Put it in the fridge? Oh, okay. Maybe that's what I need to do. Because I just look at the avocado and I walk by it. Hallelujah. Let's stand.